Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. And a Happy New Year.
Welcome back to the Backwards History Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Will, here with my co-host, Kevin. Say hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Shut up, Kevin.
Merry Christmas to you, Grinch.
Hey. I prefer Scrooge, thank you. Bah humbug.
Because he's loaded?
Yeah, because I really love Christmas. It has nothing to do with the fact he hates Christmas. Christmas is my jam.
I do enjoy the holidays.
The holidays?
Holidays.
Holidays? Okay. We'll come back to that at the end of the episode.
To clarify, I just enjoy having time off from work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
But what we really enjoy here at the Backwards History Podcast is when you go and do those social media thingy things, go like, share, subscribe, tell everybody you know that you think would enjoy this, or maybe they won't enjoy this, but they'll get a little something out of it that maybe you feel like they should learn. But we also want you to go to our Teespring, teespring.com/stores/backwards-history-store. Go pick you up some of our merch. Go get you a Shut Up Kevin mask. You know, since we're probably about to go through some more lockdowns and
restrictions,
stricter. The Biden first 100-day mask mandate nationwide, unconstitutional BS. But that's not the subject of today's episode. You just need to go get you a Backwards History hoodie to survive this winter. That's what you need.
That's it.
But what we want to talk about today, actually, this is almost a continuation of our Pagan Roots Christmas episode we did last year. But we're not going to label it that. This is going to be Santa's other helpers. Everybody knows about Santa and his elves at the North Pole, blah, blah, blah. But throughout history and other cultures, Santa has had some very interesting sidekicks, as it were. Some scarier than others, some more controversial than others.
That's one way to describe it.
But we've got this thing here. I call him Kevin. I call him the mole rat.
Oh, Lord.
I call him the what's that? Call him Stanley Yelnats because he likes to dig in holes all day.
I do enjoy digging holes.
But to the Backwards History Podcast, he would be our resident historian. He's going to tell you all about it. Kevin.
Thank you, Will. It is good to be back in the studio today on my holiday break. But yes, as Will said,
I keep threatening to fire him for not coming to work, but it didn't do anything.
I'm still here. No one else wants this gig.
Me neither.
But anyway, as Will said, this will be a somewhat of a continuation of last year's Pagan Roots on Christmas, but was more of a look at the, weirder side of the traditions we have surrounding Christmas. When Will came to me with the idea of, Santa's other helpers, I was like, oh, this could be fun because there's such a long, rich history of various cultures that celebrate Christmas or Christmas-like holidays. And Saint Nick has a unique list of buddies he's hung out with over the centuries. Well, I wanted to start with the one that's most common in the American psyche and American culture, and those would be the elves. And when I first went into it, I was like, doing the research, I wondered, elves, it's probably, that's probably a good, short little story, like, Santa, elves, nothing big. But as I did my research, I realized, oh wow, there's a bit of a long history here with elves and people and how it's trickled into our modern day holiday.
Meaning Kevin was wrong.
No, I was just mistaken.
You were wrong.
Mistaken. I was less right. Anyway.
Less right. That's clever.
But anyone who's a Lord of the Rings fan or Tolkien fan, elves are kind of like right in the thick of that story. These aren't those elves we're going to be talking about today. Elves trace their earliest mythology back to Norse mythology and Scandinavians. And they were referred to as the hidden folk. These are, folk you just don't see.
And because they're hidden?
They're hidden, as the name might suggest. They're also referred to as Alfar, and I'm probably going to butcher this word, and I do apologize, Hudelfolk. Which, when I say it probably sounds really made up. It's totally a word.
I'm sorry for any of our listeners from that area of the world.
Sorry. Yeah, sometimes that southern accent slips out. Anyway.
Sometimes?
A lot of the time. Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time in Louisiana. Anyway.
That's not a southern accent, son. That's a Creole accent.
I'm getting all confused. But anyway. The earliest mythology has them tied in Norse mythology. And in some circles, they were even considered to be, gods themselves. And in others, and sometimes were associated with fertility, which seems to show up a lot during this holiday.
It shows up a lot during any holiday that's pagan related.
Right. I wonder what they had on the mind. But anyway.
I mean, this is pre-smartphone, pre-internet, pre-television, pre-all that stuff. There's probably not much more entertaining than each other, if you get what I mean.
Wink, wink.
Heyo.
Now, elves share a spot in mythology with other supernatural beings in many European cultures. They're closely tied with fairies and elves in Celtic mythology, dwarves in Germanic mythology, and so on and so forth. These are hidden supernatural beings that it's our attempt to explain natural phenomenon that we just don't quite understand. Magic. Now, elves have undergone quite a few different changes and throughout various cultures. The earliest written reference to elves or elven-like folk is actually written in church texts from about 500 AD. Which is funny because now we're starting to introduce elves in Christianity. Like, how does that work? These are mythological creatures. Well, in the epic poem Beowulf, they're actually tied in with Cain. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the story of Cain and Abel, Cain wasn't exactly a good guy. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but he killed his brother. Oops.
I mean, supposedly that book's been on the planet for a really long time, so I think we're past the spoiler warning.
Some people don't like to read. What can I say?
Guilty.
Now, with Cain having been, cursed, as the Bible puts it, after his heinous act, mythology develops outside the Bible to explain the unexplainable, I guess is the best way to put it. So all the evil creatures that inhabited the earth, medieval Europeans took them as those are the descendants of Cain. Elves were thrown into that mix for some odd reason. Elves were considered dark and dangerous creatures.
Maybe people were scared of their pointy ears.
Yeah, possibility. And the epic Beowulf, as I mentioned, they point that out. It's a reflection of the, thoughts of the time. Elves were part of the evil creatures that descended from Cain and warred with God along with the giants. That might not sound like the elves we associate with Christmas, at least in America. Now, this story has a couple of twists and turns in it, and we can actually track the evolution of this tradition as it occurred, which is rare when it comes to studying cultures because you don't get exact dates like you do with this one. So the first mention of, or the first time there's any writing about Santa Claus and elves comes in a poem that was written in 1823 that many of us, at least in the U.S., have heard, and that's The Night Before Christmas. Not to be confused with the great Tim Burton movie, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
What's this?
What's that? Now, to settle a controversy, you watch that movie during Halloween and Christmas, not one or the other. I just felt like that needed to get put out there.
So which is it? A Halloween
both.
movie or a Christmas movie?
It's both. It's an anytime movie. Yeah. Now, in that poem, Santa is referred to as a jolly elf, which lays the groundwork of elves being associated with Santa Claus. Now you fast forward a while to 1857, and Harper's Weekly publishes a poem called The Wonders of Santa Claus. And in that one, they associate Santa with elves, and the elves are helping Santa prepare gifts for the good children, boys and girls and all that. That's where we have our first written account of Santa and elves and more or less the workshop story. Now you fast forward a little more, 1922, Norman Rockwell, for those of you unaware, great American artist, paints a painting of Santa and his elves working kind of last minute to finish the dollhouse. They're all kind of wore out, exhausted, and they're trying to get to the last one done. And then in 1932, a little company called Disney releases a short movie called Santa's Workshop that really kind of drives the final nail in the coffin of the narrative of elves and Santa in the workshop and all that. So that we take it from just a brief mention of elves and Santa all the way to the story we're more familiar with now. So with elves, they're so closely tied in with Santa in the United States. In other cultures, not so much. You get very, very different helpers for Santa in other places. One that's become very popular in the U.S. in the last decade or so is a figure known as Krampus. Many of you might know it from that horror movie that came out a couple of years back of the same name.
A horrid horror movie?
It was just really hard for me to follow. I wasn't like, what's going on? But, watch it, form your own opinion, tell me what you think. So Krampus, there's really not a consensus on an origin story, and there are varying degrees of his association with St. Nicholas. But one of the most common threads is he's basically Santa's opposite. Kind of a yin to the yang story here. You got Santa who rewards the good boys and girls. You get Krampus who punishes the bad girls and boys. Now, his appearance is one of the most consistent aspects of the story. Basically, scary demon with horns. There are certain satanic aspects, hoof and feet, and the horns. Now, Krampus originates in Germany and Bavaria in that area, and then heavily in the Alps up in that area. Not exactly what you want to see on Christmas, you know what I mean?
Heck no.
One of Krampus's, one of the other consistent stories is, he basically show up at your house and spank your children when they were bad. that was his gig. And some other stories, like the really bad children, he would take them off. Some he would consume them. Like I said, you get varying degrees of the story, but all around, not a great person, guy, or whatever you want to see on Christmas, or I guess at any point, any time, ever. Now, one of the more controversial figures, especially in today's cancel culture society, is Black Peter, who is associated with Dutch culture, or as he's known in there, and I hope I pronounce this right, I'm probably not, Zwarte Piet. Now, this is where we get the image of, in America at least, Santa Claus coming down the chimney. He was more of an assistant with Santa than the Krampus story, but he basically just aided Santa from most of the stories you read. He was called Black Peter because when you go down the chimney, you got a lot of soot on you. Now, in today's time, with the cancel culture going on, the story, the tradition has come under a lot of fire for images of blackface that was used during the vaudeville times, post Civil War America, which were notoriously racist plays that were put on and intentionally misrepresented African Americans in the most heinous ways possible. So they've come under a lot of fire for Santa having a black assistant who is covered in soot because it brings up these bad memories, I guess, in American psyche.
They bring up the imagery of Santa having a slave.
Right. It's one that a lot of people, like in today's time, they're looking at it with modern eyes. They're not really understanding that this is tradition that started in another part of the world, and you're looking at it not only through a modern view but also through a American-centric view.
Yep.
But those are some of the more lesser-known helpers of Santa and a little bit of their backstory.
So, Kevin was just talking about the now infamous cancel culture that we find ourselves in 2020 America. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm probably repeating myself from last year's Christmas episode, but I really don't care. Especially in a year that's been as trying as this one.
Mm-hmm.
When I get the opportunity to actually go out to a store and see someone face to face, even if it's just the cashier, it's here in the South, we don't nearly have this as much as I feel it happens elsewhere. But to have somebody look at me and say, "Happy Holidays," is unnerving for a few reasons. I get that it's supposed to be celebratorily ambiguous.
Yeah,
inclusive, to where you're not respecting one and sequestering another or whatever. But it comes off as fake because it comes off like that is your only goal and only reason to say it as a form of virtue signaling.
Right.
When I would rather someone, whether they celebrate Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Christmas or whatever, own up to your own, particular holiday that you prefer. Tell me Happy Hanukkah. Tell me Happy Kwanzaa. Tell me Merry Christmas. Tell me Merry Happy Day Off or whatever,
Happy Saturnalia,
Right.
Whatever floats your boat.
And own it. It's a statement of well wish.
Yeah, express you.
Right. You're wishing me well regardless of the holiday that you espouse.
Or don't.
And anyone who would get offended by someone using their freedom of speech in the United States to wish you well, regardless of what you celebrate, what they celebrate, is idiotic if you get offended by that. But on top of that, especially if you want to crap on Christmas directly, without realizing at this point in our country's life cycle, Christmas has kind of broken its religious bonds by majority.
It is a very secular holiday now.
It's very much Americana at this point. You know, I'm agnostic. I'm not a religious person, and I love Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas is my jam.
Oh, that's great.
For the Americana and admittedly pagan parts of Christmas, those are the parts I like because Christmas can be a fun time.
Right.
Christmas is the time I can give my kid. I can always give my kids gifts, but there's a certain feeling to it, you know. Family gets together, you get to give people gifts that they would normally give.
You get time off from work.
Right.
Everybody wins.
It's a good way to cap off the year with a lot of time off, a lot of unique things to do. You get to see family you don't ever see for no other reason than it exists, you know. Christmas is not so much about the religious holiday as it is about, to use a religious term, about the fellowship.
Sure.
About the time with other people, about the happiness that people can bring each other when we are hateful for most of the year. Most people, except for, during the peak stressful portions of holiday shopping,
oh Lord,
the actual holiday celebrations or some of the Christmas celebrations are some of the happiest ones you'll have all year, where most people let themselves actually enjoy themselves and be fun to be around. So, I don't know. I wish me a happy whatever you celebrate, and I will take it as a happy, it will translate into me as a Merry Christmas. Or it will translate to me as, I'm wishing you well, regardless.
Just well wishes all around.
And if you're that sensitive, go somewhere else. Of course, I'm sure you wouldn't be this far into any podcast of ours if you were that sensitive.
Yeah, that's probably a safe bet.
Yeah. So from me and Kevin here at the Backwards History Podcast, we want to wish everyone listening a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, but also Happy Hanukkah, but I know Hanukkah's already passed.
It's over, yeah.
Kwanzaa, I think it happens after Christmas.
I think so.
I'm not entirely sure, so don't hang me for it. Happy whatever you celebrate. Happy time off.
Happy time off.
Happy time working, still making money. Whatever you're doing, have a happy time doing it. But we're going to say Merry Christmas. We don't want you to take us as experts. We don't want you to take anything we say as fact. Do your own research. Form your own opinions. Trust, but verify.